Welcome to India Global Forum, where India meets the world and the world meets India. Hear from the most dynamic business leaders and technology disruptors as they share their insights and secrets of success. Meet and network with the most influential, most innovative, and the most enterprising. India Global Forum is the agenda-setting platform. Visit www.indiaglobalforum.com.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very, very warm welcome to you all to the IGF Women in Leadership Forum. My name is Laura Buckwell, and it's a great pleasure to be welcoming you all here live at the Taj Exotica, Dubai the Palm, here in the UAE. Well, it is the fourth day of the IGF UAE Forum. We've had a summit on climate change. We've had the Founders and Funders Forum. We've had the IGF Forum and also the IGF Studio as well. We'll be broadcasting live, by the way, today via our media partners, NDTV, BQ Prime, Golf News and Daily Hunt. Now, if you'd like to join the conversation, please do so by using our hashtag, which is IGF UAE. Well, as you know, the India Global Forum is where India meets the world and where the world meets India. Well, to start us off, ladies and gentlemen, I thought we'd start off with a quote from Michelle Obama. She once said, "No country can ever truly flourish if it stifles the potential of its women and deprives itself of the contributions of half its citizens." Yes, ladies and gentlemen, 3.9 billion people in the world are women, making up half of the global population. So how can we make sure that women are joining the conversation and joining the solutions and essential contributions to these decisions? How do we level the playing field? Well, according to the McKinsey Global Institute, closing the gender gap in the workforce could add a staggering $28 trillion to the global economy. Think about that for a minute, ladies and gentlemen. $28 trillion to the global economy, which is a huge, quite shocking figure, in fact. Right, some more figures to think about. 190 million fewer women than men have a bank account in the world. That's apparently according to the World Bank. And 2/3 of the 750 million illiterate adults worldwide are also women. That's according to UNESCO figures. Some very shocking figures there. I'm going to be reeling off some more figures as we go through the day as well. Well, before we dive into our conversations here at the Women in Leadership Forum, at the India Global Forum, first and foremost, it's a great pleasure to introduce you all to the CEO and founder of the India Global Forum, who's here today with us. He's been working tirelessly over the last 4 days and over the last couple of months, of course, with his incredible team, many of whom are women, by the way, and I'd like to pull him up here. Come on up here. Please give a very warm welcome to Professor Manoj Ladwa, founder and CEO of the India Global Forum. Let's go here, yeah.
So, yeah?
Yep. Well, there we go. Wonderful. Thank you so much for having us here, and thank you for creating this forum as well. It's so wonderful to give women a voice within the forum and everything that you've created so far. Let's start off with how this week's been. What's happened this week?
Well, firstly, thank you very much for inviting me onto this stage, and it's great to see so many of you here in the room, and a special cheer, I think, and a round of applause to all the men in the room here. So please give them a big round of applause. It's been a fantastic week. You see, we never know when we conceptualize an event as to what it's ultimately going to turn out as. And I've been just so impressed by the energy, the enthusiasm, and everybody that's been chatting is taking away something. some new idea, some new opportunity, something to think about going back into the boardrooms or going back home and having a chat with their families and so on. And so that's really important for me. It's not the business, and that'll happen, but it's the ideas generation, what that then inspires other people. That's what makes me get up in the morning and say, yes, this is really worth doing.
So you set the forum up over in the UK. What was the sort of premise behind that? Why? What inspired you to set this up?
I was fed up, to be very honest. I was fed up and I was angry that India, the country of my origin, was being portrayed so negatively in the media and discussions around the world. And I said, well, some of that may be true. There are negatives about every country in the world, but there are so many positives. You have a country that's 1/6 of the world's population. 1/4 of the world's workforce will be Indian in the next 25 years. There's stories to be told. There's exciting stories to be told, and I wanted to tell them in a way in which it would be conversational. So you can see our logo is an open speech mark. And so that really meant a lot to me, that I was fed up of the closed conversation, masked as open conversations, but that's not the India I knew. And therefore, I said, well, if others are not going to do it, we'll set up our own forum. And here we are.
Look where we are today. It's brilliant.
So,
We're now in our second year here in the UAE as well. Has much changed over the past year?
I think the most palpable change I can see is there is a recognition of this is the moment. This is the moment for the UAE and the region to really express itself, just as people like me have been trying to help India express itself. I can see a new sense of confidence. And I've just been blown over by, Dr. Gargash, the diplomatic advisor to His Highness, and yesterday we had Her Excellency Reem Al Hashmi, His Excellency Al Olama, and various others, the top leadership of the UAE, how articulate, how clear-minded they are, recognizing that, there is a changing world here and they have a role to play, and they want to engage and embrace countries like India to say, well, let's do this journey together. That's the change.
You've gathered many leaders across the 4 days here. We're going to be speaking about inspiring leaders as well throughout today. Who and what inspires you then?
See, I think at a young age, my mother used to tell me stories from the Mahabharata, which is an Indian epic, and stories of Lord Krishna, and in particular the child Krishna, Bal Krishna, the innocent little kid, and how that innocent little kid became such a great inspiration for the world. And it's that childlike intuition or sort of inquisitiveness that I've developed over years, and when I meet anybody, I'm trying to learn a bit more about them. So I guess it's a bit cliched, but I don't know if the people that have met me will know that I'm always trying to find out a little bit more about them, what makes them happy, what makes them tick, what they're worried about, and see and reflect that in my own self. So I think everybody in this room just inspires me. I'm just meeting people. Having said that, come to the topic of women in leadership. If I look over the last few years, something that may have been missed is the work that India has done and Prime Minister Modi has done around women's empowerment is just something phenomenal. And if I brought it down to what has really been the big game changer and that has inspired me a lot, is when the Prime Minister of India, newly elected, on the 15th of August 2014, goes on the ramparts of Red Fort. And he could have made any speech he wanted to. The cornerstone of his speech, The cornerstone of his speech was toilets and sanitization. And people were confused. They were trying to interpret what it meant. It was all about empowering young women. Wow. That if you have good sanitation in schools, then girls will go to school. If you have good sanitation at home, they don't have to go into the fields. And every disgusting, nasty thing that could happen as a result of that. So you can see that that has been one of the biggest and most inspiring things for me, that the most powerful man in India focused on what had been ignored for the last 75 years and hit it on the head. If I can solve this problem, women will solve the rest of the problems for us.
Has that been an inspiration for this Women in Leadership Forum? And what is the main aim for you for the rest of the day?
See, as far as the forum is concerned, about 4 years ago, so we in the UK we publish a power list called the 100 Most Influential in UK-India Relations. And the first year we published it, we had about 12 or 13 women in there. So I said to the team, look, we've got to get the gender balance, got the, all of that sort of stuff. And so we got up to about 30 women. So then our third year, I said, look, can we get it to equal? Team got it to equal. And then I said to them, no, can we get it to 100 women? And they said, but 100 most, I said, I want the 100 most influential women. My team said, it's going to be really difficult, it's not been done. They got 130 nominations come in, and they put it all together, and we had the first list of 100 most influential women in UK India relations. What that got me thinking is that, actually, if you really want to do something, you can. There's no excuse, really, is there? And so for our next UK event, over 50% of our speakers will be women. We haven't done it yet here. That's why one of my appeal is for next year, I want this group of allies to come together and say, actually, in our organization, VFS, for instance, I don't want Zubin talking next year. I want the women in the organization talking, and then you guys are doing a great job. So I'm just pointing them out. One, they're our sponsors, but more importantly, they actually are doing some great stuff. And I think Zubin would be one of the first guys to acknowledge that. That's the sort of stuff that I want to see.
I want to congratulate you as well on having such an amazing female-based team as well. You've got quite a few women executives on your team. Tell us a little bit about what choices you've made in that respect. Why so many women?
It's not been a conscious choice. One of my best team members is my wife, Dina. But it wasn't a conscious choice that, we just need to, that Nomita, Rajvi, Ishita, they all just came, they joined, and they've just gone on with the job. And yes, I do see differences, and no disrespect to my male colleagues, but the multitasking, for instance, I just find it absolutely amazing how women that have got household responsibilities, let's face it, are able to juggle between top-level conversations and conference calls and getting Megan and others and, high-profile people to come onto our platform, yet they still have duties at home. And they're, working from home and juggling all of these, and kids just screaming and shouting in the background and so on. But they've got their husbands to deal with all of that these days, so it's pretty good. But it's just happened like that. I'm really proud of it.
Let's hear it for his team. They have worked incredibly hard, I can't tell you, over the past months, and obviously it's year round as well, isn't it? Sadly, that is all we have time for, but just before you go, thank you so much for sitting down with us as well. I want to do a bit of a test with our audience here today. Are you up for a bit of a test? Are you up for it?
I want to share one other thing.
Sure, yeah.
Just one other thing.
Why not?
And that is that if somebody asked me what is my vision for this forum, I want this for India Global Forum, I want it to grow. I want it to, make real, strong social impact and business impact everywhere it goes. But as far as the Women in Leadership Forum is concerned, I'm going to make a controversial statement. I don't want it to exist in the next 2 or 3 years. I really don't want it to exist. There should not be a need for this, is what my view is. But in order to get to that point, we've got to have these conversations. That's my view.
Very well said. Thank you. Well, yes, as I mentioned, I want to do a quick test. Is that okay? Are you going to stay on the stage and do it with us? Everyone at home, online, whoever's watching as well, or our online guests, please join in. Right, I want our crowd here today to all please close your eyes. Everyone, close your eyes. Trust me, don't worry. Nothing will happen. You're not in danger. Close your eyes. Now, think of a leader that inspires you. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds. Think very hard, maybe through your childhood, through work, through anyone in politics. Who inspires you? A leader that inspires you. Right, open your eyes, please. Now put your hand up if you thought of a man. Put your hand up. Quite a few, but actually not that many. And actually, when we've done this task before, in predominantly male audiences, might I add, in industry events, pretty much 90% have got their hands up. And even I, actually, the first time I did it, had my hand up for a man. And it's obviously because of all, the number of men in these positions, they still dominate. But so wonderful to see so many people that actually thought of women. So well done. Well done to you all. Anyway, Manoj, thank you so much. It's been wonderful to speak with you. And thank you so much for creating such a splendid forum. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, speaking of inspiring female leaders, we are starting right at the top today with a conversation with a woman in a senior global position, and she's joining us here today. Now, recent findings from McKinsey also show that women leaders, by the way, are twice as likely to be mistaken for someone junior in their organization, and also feel that characteristics such as gender, as well as being a parent, has also hindered them in getting that raise or that senior position. To help us understand a little bit more about women in their role on the global stage, it is a great privilege to have here with us today the Consul General of the United States of America in Dubai. Please give a very warm welcome to Her Excellency Megan Gregonis. Welcome. Well, Your Excellency, thank you so much for joining us and taking time out of your very busy schedule, I'm sure. But thank you for making time for us. I wanted to start off with your personal experience, as we've got you here. Tell us about your personal experience professionally on getting to where you are today. What sort of challenges and opportunities have you had along the way?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Laura, and also thanks to IGF for putting this important topic on the agenda. It's a great pleasure to talk about it. I come from a very male-dominated field, diplomacy. When I entered the State Department, it was a very different organization more than 20 years ago, where women did not necessarily have a seat at the table. We had Madeleine Albright as our first female Secretary of State, and that was a breakthrough, but she was not necessarily my role model. She was a political appointee. So I looked at the tables of negotiations and discussions, and they were all male. So today we're in a very different place, but we're still very heavily male-dominated. And the challenges that women like me continue to face are, yes, we are confused. We're more junior staffers. We are told that we look very young for the positions that we encumber. I have been told, for example, at my last assignment in Western Europe, by the way, my contacts insisted, no, you must be the wife of the Consul General. You can't possibly be the Consul General. You don't look like a Consul General. Well, yes, a Consul General can look like me. Here in Dubai, I am the very first woman to be the American Consul General here. It's been a long time. Why haven't we had one sooner? Because of these barriers. Dubai, for example, is a very business-focused environment, and I think that it's been very difficult for women to demonstrate I've got the qualifications and skills to be able to do this job and do it just as well or even better than my male colleagues.
So speaking of the UAE and Dubai, what do you think Dubai has been doing quite well when it comes to encouraging women into the workforce, especially women entrepreneurs? Because I think they do quite well.
Yeah, UAE has an amazing success story. And in fact, they're really leading for the region. So when you look at the UAE in the public sector, 2/3 of public sector employees are female. 30% of those employees are in leadership positions. 42% of the UAE, their foreign service is female. These are really fantastic statistics, and they're really leading. Here in the business sector, there continue to be barriers, but there are amazing power women who have made it to the top, and they've got amazing teams around them, not just the women, but also the men who are supporting them. And I think that that's a really important element of making sure that those with the best qualifications, the women who are best qualified, are able to rise to the top.
Well, let's talk about the policy stage. What sort of changes need to be made right at the top in order for essential change to be made to get women into these global positions?
Yeah, it's so important. The top really needs to set gender equality as a policy priority. So here in the UAE, just going back for a second, 50% of the Federal National Council is female. That's really amazing. It's such an important body. In the United States, last year we established a gender policy council for the first time. We have a national strategy on gender policy. In the United States Department of State, we've even broadened it to be diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. I think that this is really common these days, but for us it's not just lip service. We recognize that we are going to get a better product, a better result, the more diverse our team is, the better ideas there are out there, and the more we're leveraging the breadth of our human capital, we're going to be more successful.
A really interesting question. Do you think that women really can have it all when they're in these senior leadership positions, when it comes to juggling families, home life, whatever that might be, and also when it comes to your mental health? Like, how do you not endure burnout if you're trying to please everyone and you're married to everything?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's the challenge of our time, and it's really the challenge for my generation. I think it's getting better for more generations coming through. I think women, yes, can have it all. I think that men can have it all too. Men can be able to spend more time with their families as well. As a result, we need to be supporting each other. Unfortunately, I'm not the best role model because I don't have a family, but I do have a husband, and I want to make sure that I've got work-life balance and I've got some boundaries. And this is the advice that I give to all of my younger colleagues coming through the system. You need to set the boundaries, and once we have those boundaries set, then the work will be evenly distributed. You can do those tough jobs. You need to be available, you need to be flexible, but the men need to be flexible in the office, and everyone needs to work together as a team to carry the load and move forward.
And obviously with the pandemic, that's completely changed the landscape when it comes to work-life balance, and there's more flexible working, for example. A lot of companies are still trying to get everyone back into the office full-time, but a lot of people have, accepted this new model. So what does that mean for women? Has that actually helped them, or has it set them back when it comes to these leadership positions?
I think it helps women because it untethers us from the office. I don't need to be in the office for 12 hours a day. I can do a lot of things at home. At night, I can log back onto the system and clear things out. I didn't have that flexibility before. COVID really brought that for us. We've got limitations on our side in my business, but I think that we do have a lot more opportunities now. And again, it's not just for the women, it's also for the men as well.
There's a really interesting example of gender bias I'd like to share with you, and it's how blind auditions changed the face of American orchestras in the 70s, where 6% of women made up American orchestras, basically. However, off the back of blind testing, they now make up a huge percentage, and I think they almost make up a third of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, all because of blind auditions, you see. So what does this mean, and do you think we need these types of blind auditioning when it comes to business? Because we're still sort of, we're not there yet, are we?
We're not quite there yet, and yes, we do need to improve our approaches, and we're doing that on the US side, for example, by focusing on qualifications. When you try to level the playing field and look at the qualifications, you're going to find a lot of women who are extremely well qualified or overqualified for those jobs that maybe men were getting in the past. It's also very important to take a look at the total composition of the team. For us, diversity means not just gender balance, but diversity of ideas, diversity of backgrounds. So for us, when we've got an equal choice of two equally qualified candidates, a lot of times we're choosing the diversity because we want that different approach in the office, because we recognize that that collaborative, inclusive approach results in a better product for us.
What about the notion of unconscious bias? Because no matter how much you want to say you don't have it, every single person in this room has unconscious bias, depending on how they've been brought up, how they've been conditioned in whatever sort of upbringing they've had, and education as well. What do we do? How do we combat unconscious bias? Is it the fact that we've got to admit it first and then try and work on that? And how do you know whether you've got unconscious bias?
I think we all recognize that unconscious bias exists. I think that we're all guilty of it in some way. We just can't get around it. But recognizing that exists and then taking measures to really counter the unconscious bias is really important. Some of those measures include ensuring that there are women like me in these leadership positions to show that, yes, women can do these jobs as well. Other opportunities are really coaching and mentoring. I like to do 360-degree mentoring up to really call out the leadership when maybe they are guilty of unconscious bias and say, hey, do you realize that maybe that was interpreted not the way you intended? But also to encourage the younger colleagues coming through the system, not just the women, but also those who come from maybe less represented backgrounds, encouraging them to overcome those biases and just do the best possible job that they can, develop their qualifications so that they will have every chance to move forward.
So what sort of encouragement have you had professionally as well? Did you ever have a mentor? Did you ever have someone that inspired you or a role model? And how important are those elements for anyone that's looking to sort of climb the ladder professionally?
I think it's fundamental. Everyone needs a mentor, everyone, and I think that everyone should be mentoring. So I think that that's really important. It's really interesting to think about our childhood as well, and the role of our moms on us, and how we get encouragement from our parents or from our extended family structure. I think that's critically important, and I think that women are in a really unique position to be giving that reinforcement to kids and encouraging them to keep pushing forward. That came from my mom. My mom encouraged me to do anything that I wanted to do, that I could be just as good as the boys at anything. And what did I do? I pursued national security, a very male-dominated field. And I've had mentors also within our system, within the State Department, who have really encouraged me to take on those tough jobs. They've encouraged me to go after the big boy jobs, the really tough ones. And I did that. I don't think that that is the right path for everyone. I don't think that you have to take on the hardest jobs all the time, but you do need to make sure that you are focused on your own career, focus on getting the qualifications that you need to move forward, because no one's going to come to you just because there's a women's quota and say, oh, you're smart, you should go into this position. You need to have the qualifications.
How has it been working in male-dominated areas throughout your career as well? Has it been an easy ride?
I haven't really focused on it, honestly. I focus more on doing the best possible job that I could do and moving forward. A common question that I get, I've served in Saudi Arabia, and everyone asks, how is serving in Saudi Arabia? And my response is that it was wonderful. I had access to women, and I had access to men. The men were very open to working with me, and it was a very successful experience for me, and I had more opportunities than my male colleagues who could not access the women and family part of the culture. It's changing now in Saudi Arabia. Of course, this was some years ago, but I see it as an opportunity.
So how do you think women are doing generally in these global roles, not just senior level leadership, but in a global role like yours?
Honestly, I think it's a struggle for everyone. I think there are always struggles. I think that we need to continue to support each other. I think that leadership really needs to be looking out, again, not just for the women, but for others who may not represent the traditional person who is generally in that role. So I think that this is a team effort to make sure that women are continuing to come through the system. And I think that we have a job to do too as women, to look out for others and to really demonstrate that we can be just as talented and smart and great at our jobs as our male counterparts.
So what are those main challenges that still remain? Is there anything that's sort of there at the moment that you think is a particular struggle that needs to change?
Yeah, I think that the challenge is always showing that there is no one right way to do a job. For example, what we found in our system is that women tend to be more collaborative, more team-oriented. The leadership style that a lot of men in our system have has been more directive. There's a time and a place for both kinds of leadership styles, but there's an opportunity to show that that collaborative kind of nice girl approach to things that can be very successful and that can work. People don't have as much experience with that. So that's where women like me are really trying to show, you know what, you can get ahead, you can be a collaborator, you can be a nice person, you don't have to have the pointy elbows, really to move ahead and be very successful.
In a position such as yours, do you find it's a responsibility as well to help encourage other women? And are you doing anything about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mentor all the time. Even yesterday, I had a conversation internally in our consulate as part of our federal women's program. So it's a constant theme of engagement for us. But I don't want to leave out our male colleagues because I feel like they should be supported too. We need to be supporting each other. And just going back to what I mentioned earlier, a lot of men have expressed to me they want to be able to spend more time with their families as well. They don't want to have to work 12 hours in the office. So we need to figure out a way to bring balance for everyone, and then we'll be successful together.
We need to make it an even playing field. And as we mentioned, so wonderful to see so many men in the crowd today. It really is excellent. Thank you so much for joining us here today. What are the key pieces of advice you give to people when they look for mentorship then?
Yeah, again, I mean, to look around. Not just female mentors, male mentors as well. We really need to cast a wider net. Stay in touch with your mentors, develop those relationships with your mentors. And for me, it needs to be 360 degrees, laterally and below as well. And calling out leadership when you need to explain to leadership, the approach maybe is not getting the result that you intended, for example. We need to really be speaking truth to power. That's important because that unconscious bias does still exist, and we need to keep working together to improve the situation for again, not just women, but others who are coming from non-traditional backgrounds.
Let's speak about the role of men, actually, and their input, because, of course, no conversation can be done without male input, of course not, and it has to be an even playing field. So how important is that male voice within any type of institution or company or whatever it might be? How important is that to get sort of men on side?
Absolutely critical, but it's really critical to go back and look at equity. Make sure that you're being fair with everyone. Going back and when you're hiring for a job, looking at the qualifications. You're not hiring someone because he's a nice guy, would be a good team player. You're hiring someone with the best qualifications or someone who brings a specific kind of diversity or specific viewpoints to the team. And it really needs to come from both the male leadership and the female leadership.
Right, your final piece of advice when it comes to any women here, maybe that are watching online or are in the crowd and they're aspiring to get into a global position or even just a senior position as well. What are your key pieces of advice you can leave us here with today?
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage women, you can do it. You can do those really tough jobs, national security, political, military affairs, these really tough male-dominated industries. We really need women's voices and women's perspectives. And I don't understand why there aren't more women there. We need to bring more women into science and technology. We need to have more women into these heavily male-dominated fields because that's a perspective that I think is unique and complements the male approaches to doing things. So I would encourage everyone to, if it's a tough challenge, tough task, you're up for it and go for it.
And it only makes us even more determined, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and better qualified for whatever our next steps are.
Exactly. It's been such a privilege to share the stage with you. We cannot thank you enough for being here at the Women in Leadership Forum here at the IGF UAE. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Wonderful
Thanks, Laura.
to speak with
Thank you. Thanks. Great to be here. Thanks.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, Your Excellency. We cannot thank you enough for being with here. A fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for leaving with us with so much inspiration as well. Thank you so much. Right, ladies and gentlemen, another shocking figure for you all to think about before we move on to our next subject. Here we are. According to OECD figures, 300% more time is spent on unpaid care work by women than men. 300%. Yet another very very unsettling figure there. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be reeling those off throughout the day as well. Well, we move on now from women on the global stage to women, leadership and talent. Now, diversity and inclusion, of course, is a key focus for most organizations today. However, of course, there are still huge challenges and women are still majorly underrepresented. A recent study showed that the main challenges keeping women from leadership positions are that women are held to higher standards. Also is that many businesses aren't ready to hire for top executive positions. They're not ready to hire them. Time constraints due to family responsibilities, I can sort of relate to that, I suppose, and not having the same connections as men, which I find a little bit ridiculous as well, and that women are less likely to ask for the position or the raise, which runs true with so many people that I know as well. Now, what many people and what many companies do not realize is that if they do not act now, they risk losing their current women leaders, and they also risk losing that next generation as well. So, time now to find out how to secure the talent pipeline. And who better to talk about this than three women, senior women leaders, might I add. And I'm very pleased to say that we also have two male voices on the panel today as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give a very warm welcome to our first guest. Please welcome Supriya Kumamuru. She's the CTO for the Middle East and Africa at Tata Consultancy Services. A very warm welcome. Lovely to have you here. How are you? Please do take a seat. Our next guest is Noha Hefni. She is the founder and CEO of People of Impact, UAE. A very warm welcome. Our next guest is Jitan Vyas. He is the Chief Commercial Officer and member of the Executive Board at VFS. Fantastic to have you here. And our final guest is Harsh Vendra Soin, the Chief People Officer of Tech Mahindra India. A very warm welcome. Fantastic to have you here. There you go, an even playing field for you, ladies and gentlemen. There we go, two voices from men and two female voices as well. Wonderful to have you here today. Right, I wanted to start off actually with a general overview from each of you in terms of what you feel is the current market condition when it comes to women in leadership positions. What sort of culture change or new approach do you think is needed? Let's start off with setting the scene. Ladies first, let's start with Supriya.
Thank you. So let me start with something which is very gender agnostic, and I think Meg was referring to it and Manoj also referred. I think what is gender agnostic is your intelligence, your qualifications and your capability to realize the roles. But if you go to the gender female, there are a lot more diversity quotients to it. I think it starts with age, your marital status, your career stage and phase you're in, and also looks and attitude. I think that also matters when we are in I would say the boundaries are blurring. All these were which of great concern, maybe I would say almost 3 decades back when I started my career, have blurred now thanks to different work patterns and the industry I come from. I can work 24/7, which we sometimes do along with other responsibilities. But I think, yes, we need to focus on, and there are opportunities now. There are 2 things to it. One is the environment has to provide, I mean, more, make it, enable it, help women navigate their personal and professional careers. The other is, I think, the lady herself. I think you enjoy what you're doing and have the confidence to face the role. Very often, given the constraints that we have, depends on the culture and the geography that you come from, probably you hesitate. Fortunately, I was not in that, though I belong to a culture where I should have had I made a choice at different phases. So I think the world is out there open, enjoy what you're doing and you're qualified to do it, and I think the ecosystem will open up for you.
And as you said, it's so important to have that ambition anyway as an individual to sort of fight for what you want at the same time as well, definitely.
And I think the bias to that I would add is it's attitude. So sometimes in some cultures, if it's women having that ambition, probably there's a negative connotation, but men having is considered, yes, they have to. So I think that has to be overcome by most women in probably circumstances.
And it is breaking those barriers, isn't
Yes.
it? Noha, over to you. What sort of climate do you think there is at the moment, especially within the Middle East? Let's focus on the Middle East.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the question, and thank you to IGF for inviting me today. For me, looking at the global picture of what is happening around the world, obviously COVID-19 has had a tremendous impact on women and girls, actually disproportionately impacting them, whether this is on the socioeconomic front. So when we look at communities, those who are most impacted by socioeconomic issues like poverty, hunger, education, etc., are the women. Now, when we take that to the workplace, again, we see a similar disproportionate impact. More women during the pandemic have been burdened, with all the care responsibilities falling on them, and again, having to step up for their roles as teachers, caregivers, mothers, and professionals as well, continuing to deliver at the same rate that their organizations are expecting. So this is causing really, again, a tremendous pressure on women. Remote work, as a result, has given many women the opportunity to balance work and life, but for some, it has been more pressuring to be available 24/7 and again, as mentioned earlier in this forum, I think setting boundaries, ensuring quality in terms of work-life balance, and when we look at family, as women, we always have this guilt factor. What do I do? Do I deliver? There's always a trade-off. And to be honest, I don't think we can have it all on that point. And the reason is that it's always a choice between, today I'm going to trade off one aspect of the work, and tomorrow it's going to be the family. And it's striking that balance between all the trade-offs. But I think we can do it, and I do believe that we should be represented as women in every sector. And I also think, in terms of the environment, an inclusive recovery or future of work cannot materialize without women being at the heart of planning, decision-making, and shaping the way forward, whether it is at the community level or at the workplace level. So I would say the shift that we truly need is a strategic approach. And I know there's a lot of momentum, there's a lot of leaders in public or private sectors looking to step up, their commitments towards gender equality, but there needs to be more strategic integration. There needs to be more evidence-based approaches using data to measure progress on these actions on diversity, equity, and inclusion, on women's rights, on driving gender equality in organizations. And I think today I haven't seen, organizations going beyond that initial commitment. So we are seeing gender-sensitive approaches, but not necessarily unresponsive approaches. So there is action, there are policies being developed, etc. But again, in the private sector, I think we have a long way to go to actually drive gender transformation and gender transformative action, where we embed, gender equality, diversity, equity, and inclusion in the very fabric and DNA of our companies, and where we, it's part of the strategy. It goes hand in hand. It's not something, a nice to do that we do, to tick a box or to report to an investor on the S of the ESG. It's a consistent drive forward to truly embed this in the benefit of both men and women. So
interesting what you say about the pandemic and the flexible working, and actually you think that actually it doesn't help women because they have even more responsibilities, and it's not, it's very difficult to sort of balance that out. But very quickly, I'd just like to quickly move on to Jitin. Tell us about your outlook when it comes to the climate for women in leadership positions.
For us, I'll talk about my organization, VFS Global, and I've taken the challenge, Manoj. Next time we'll be better balanced here on this forum. For us, a company that's present in 140 countries, it's a very young 22-year-old organization with 9,500 employees, 60% of which are women. Hand on my heart, did it start like this? No. Have we got better? Have we improved? 100% yes. The mantra that we have, our CEO Zubin, who was here yesterday, and for a whole lot of us, is it starts with us and it stops with us. I superly agree to your comment about ticking the box and doing it for board reports and the ESG piece, etc. But the reality is, when for a company like ours, when we work in markets like India, we are a homegrown Indian company. We work in Africa, here in Middle East. The last 7 to 10 years with the positive advent of social media has seen greater awareness within women, but also on gender equality. I know today's session is on leadership, but for us, a whole lot of us, we should start from the bottom up. How can we impact, how can we influence a small or medium enterprise offering a catering service in Africa to a tier 3 or a tier 4 city in Jamnagar in Gujarat? How can we influence that lady or that small family business? That's the thinking that we've developed over the last few years. And my last point on this, the slight advantage that we have as a company that works only with governments is we have the ability to see what governments are doing. We have a whole lot of institutions such as the IGF here, and also the fact that our origins out of India, 3 of these things kind of blend in together to ensure where we are today and where we want to be in the next 5 to 7. I don't think we want to promise the moon, but 5 to 7 is a good target for us to see, can we make a difference? Thank you.
It's very encouraging indeed. We move on over to Harshvendra. How important are women to your organisation, and how do you see the current climate for women in leadership positions right now?
Well, thank you. And well, I represent a company that is 170,000 people across 105 countries. And if you look at the climate, I would say mindsets are changing, but they're not changing fast enough. Diversity and inclusivity is extremely important. We are a tech company. Innovation is at our core. Women leaders don't need dole-outs. They need equality and equal opportunity. And that's the mindset change. And I'm very happy to see the topic, because actually it's about spearheading women leadership and securing the talent pipeline. And to me, the challenge is the broken rung in the middle. You know, I've had many conferences where people talk passionately about how they're hiring women at the bottom of the pyramid. That's great. But the issue really is, how are they nurturing that talent to grow from what I call the broken rung? And I was very happy to hear Her Excellency talk about it. I'm blessed to have, my mom's a judge, my wife's a professional, I'm surrounded by women, my daughter is a professional too. I think we need to make that change in schools, colleges, and our homes. It is not about a particular culture or a particular country, but I think it's about how we are brought up thinking. And therefore, I would insist again that we have a mindset problem. And we have a problem in the middle to top. And that is a difficult challenge in today's scenario, but it's changing.
Because it seems that the generation that we look up to at the end of the day were mainly male breadwinners, and women looked after the kids and family, whereas our next generation, you know, it's changing a little bit. So hopefully the generation after us is going to, you know, see the real difference, do you think? And so, yes, let's talk about where change needs to start then. As you mentioned, education and at home, what other sort of elements of change are necessary, do you think?
So I think leadership, picking up from the thread he says, is inborn in a lady, whether it was in the house or, I think that's a trait. You now call it leadership in a corporate, but I think even when they nurtured children in home, when he says his mother is a judge, it was inborn. It's not to do with culture, but how you grew up, the exposure you were given. So I think that's there in women to do it. And how do we make this change happen? So there are different, like in organizations, if I take TCS from where I come, we are a 600,000 big organization across the globe, I would say. And as I speak, probably adding more for offices in different countries. And 1/3 of them are women employees, and out of which 1/3 are in leadership positions. So what we have done is we have actually dovetailed different programs in different career and stages of a woman's life, starting when they start with an I Aspire program where You mentor and groom them because that's a stage in their life when they are trying to grapple with work, and some who are new into a family life maybe, or so it's a new organization right out of college, so there are programs for them. And then you have at a mid past that, you try to inspire them. So we have programs where we try to say, please, you have the talent and you can do it. So past that, there's a third stage where we ask them to imagine, get into leadership positions, and if we see potential for them to do, they are groomed into leaders. And besides that, there are different platforms. One of them is called the Now Network. It's network of working women, and there we again have a diversity quotient in terms of the sectors they address to, because being a large organization, different sales, marketing, emerging tech, we again have women leaders there who groom and mentor people, women who want to get into those roles. So I think it's a well-rounded, holistic approach, and that should be taken where, like I said earlier, the organization needs to help women navigate this seamlessly.
I wanted to move on to some personal challenges, actually, for both of you, if I may. What are the main sort of personal challenges you've had along the way? Is there anything that sort of prevented you from getting what you deserved? And how did you overcome that? Very quickly.
Okay, this would be a 30 seconds. So speaking for myself, I think I was blessed. I did not have many challenges because I think my father was very open to he never discriminated. It's just that we were all girls. So I don't think that came about. And I actually started off as an entrepreneur. So the leadership quality was there. But when it comes to the challenge, yes, there were challenges and challenges, which I think you need to make a choice. Some I actually didn't pick up roles because I had a choice that maybe my children needed me more than, so I took a back seat. But I think there were challenges when they felt that maybe I cannot take up the role because I have to relocate. But I did that at this point very recently. Earlier it was small stints traveling, but I think that was a choice which was made. I don't think, so there I don't know if it should come from within. Can you move? And yes, my spouse is I think supportive. He would have moved with me, and now actually it's a point when I'm asked, so is your family with you? So I don't think the same is question of a male colleague. I mean, you're moving and relocating. So I wouldn't call this a challenge, but I think you have to face, and it happens and you can handle it.
Moving on, sorry, we are running out of time sadly, but yeah, very quickly, what sort of challenges and opportunities have you had on the way?
Yeah, well, they're both organizational, but obviously reflect on my personal leadership journey. So on the organizational level, I mean, I've worked with so many organizations on advancing their gender equality, and I always see culture to be the most difficult and challenging aspect to address. You know, how do we build those inclusive cultures that integrate both men and women? And, you know, because of the unconscious bias, because of the harmful gender stereotypes that can be both consciously and unconsciously perpetuated or reinforced through different processes, language that we use, etc., and non-inclusive practices. I mean, many organizations struggle in that respect. So again, that particular aspect impacted my personal journey. I was also in male-dominated fields. So as an Arab woman, I started my career working with refugees at the UN and ended up in East Sudan, south of Algeria, with male colleagues and partners who asked me, like, do your parents allow you to come here? What are you doing on the field? How do you survive? Are you going to persevere? Is this difficult for you? And again, all of these are assumptions about who I am, can I do it, and my entire choice, actually. So the culture aspect and the assumptions we make about women is critical, and we should be, it starts with self-awareness. We all have these unconscious biases and past judgments all the time about cultures, nationalities, and gender. But, we should be aware about them and call them out as well in workplaces, have ways to report on that internally in confidential ways, and constantly, have ways to get mentorship around our own conscious and subconscious bias. But on a different level, it goes beyond that. It goes into society. So when I talk about culture, that and biases and all of this, It extends to society, and that is, again, how are the biases and stereotypes driven in society? It's the media, it's the marketing, it's the information we consume every day. So what do we need to do about it? As people, as I mentioned, it's our own self-awareness, and it's calling it out when it happens and not saying, oh, it's okay. And when we face it personally, also having those tough conversations sometimes with people to set the boundary and to explain why this could have been something that, was not acceptable for someone. But on the media level, it's really, again, going back to that strategic integration, which is we need to transform our marketing practices. We need to make them more inclusive. We need to look at the advertisements, particularly for consumer-facing companies, and say, are they reinforcing gender biases? Are they positioning women in, traditional roles that have become obsolete? Like, I'm an Arab woman. Everywhere I go around the world, there is that stereotype that we are oppressed, discriminated, unable to speak up for different reasons. Our story is told in so many different voices. So unless we step up as women first to change the narrative, because stereotypes are everywhere, with the Arabs, with the Asians, everywhere, European women, American women, and it will never stop. But we need to own our story, we need to own our narrative as women. It starts with us. And then we need those support networks that can further push, this idea that, gender roles have transformed. We're past this stage where women cannot be achieving any dream that they aspire for. In the UAE is a great example of that.
Very well said.
What was said. But I think culture is the biggest challenge. Organizations are changing policies, but are these policies being role modeled? Again, that goes back to a mindset, a leadership mindset that stems out of culture.
Sadly, we are running out of time. Because we just to get these last two voices in while we can. But really well said. Thank you so much. And so fascinating, so interesting. Right, moving on to Jitin. Let's talk about what you think in terms of what do you think is holding women back? I said some of the figures earlier that, some of these findings are that women don't have enough time because of family responsibilities. Companies aren't ready to position these women into their companies in senior roles. And also, women aren't asking for these promotions. What do you think as well is holding women back?
I think for us, experience in personal and professional life, fully agree here. Culture. 7 billion, 8 billion population now, majority of them coming from emerging markets, India, China, etc. I think it's the culture. Leaving that aside, what can we do? Media, social media, and once again, to be repetitive, it starts from within. That's the mantra for us, personally and professionally.
Thank you so much. And also, tell us a little bit more about the role of men as well. What role have men got to play in order to help and encourage women as well into these positions?
I think it's a very important role, and you asked the question, what should change? It's affirmative action. I get very flustered when I hear, in corporate world saying that, we're going to have a meeting on diversity and inclusivity. You can't have one meeting on inclusivity and diversity. Every single meeting, this has to be an agenda. And you talked about it. You attend women leadership program, you have all women sitting. That's not the problem. Problem is with the men. And the other thing is, it's the support. It's changing, but I think what we need is, we call it the decision on head, heart, and hand, which means head, you have to take decisions on strategic level within corporates and countries and communities. On the heart, you need to actually look at psychological safety. You actually have to look at how men mentor women and allow an equal opportunities. And the hand, finally, is on policies. So I think if all of this is addressed, and with the support of men, because they still control 60% of the jobs, unfortunately, all over the world, it is a collaborative effort that will bring this change. And even if this change is small, it's going to be significant.
Very nicely rounded up. Sadly, that's all we've got time for. I wish we could talk more on this, but sadly, there's just not enough time. At the end of the day, we all want the same thing, the same opportunities, the same pay, and an even playing field at the end of the day, don't we? Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for our panel. Very well done indeed. Thank you so much for making the time for us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we move on now to a networking break. We are going to give you 10 to 15 minutes to refresh yourselves and digest all the information that you've just been given. Please do make note of those takeaways. And we are going to reconvene in about 10 to 15 minutes. Please do come back in because we are going to be back with a focus on female entrepreneurs and some of their challenges. So we will see you in just 10 to 15 minutes. Thank you.
What can a bank bring to the world? How can it enable economies and companies to achieve their goals and help people realize their dreams? At Emirates NBD, our origins are in this sand and this sea. Just decades ago, these calm waters were echoing with the voices of pearl divers. Today, from the same land, rise modern marvels. And happy communities have been thriving on this land. Emirates NBD is a financial services company, a regional player contributing to a global ecosystem because ambition knows no borders. We exist for people, supporting human endeavor. We enable economies as an integral fabric of communities and businesses. We innovate as a means to make lives easier, simpler, more enriching. We invest in the societies we're in to ensure that we share our growth. And we're driven by customer needs and challenges across sectors, looking beyond, delivering what's next. For us, scale matters. It helps us to deliver synergies and functional expertise to our stakeholders. Technology matters. It places us at the cutting edge of transformation. Strategy matters. It positions us for leadership today and into tomorrow. Ultimately, we're all about people. Our own, our customers, our communities. We believe in creating opportunities for prosperity. We are Emirates NBD.
We are the only platform in the world that allows a non-technical customer to get software built for them without ever having to write a line of code.
All you need is a great idea, a challenge that you want to solve for your business, and we'll build the software for you.
It's easy, fast, has a fixed price. We're making people's dreams come true.
From an entrepreneur with a genius idea in their head to an enterprise CEO looking to transform their organization to the next level.
Builder will be the platform that they will build upon.
When it comes to venturing into unfamiliar territories, at Standard Chartered, we understand the journey you're making. Our network of experts are on the ground already, promoting dialogue, driving innovation, and building the sustainable economies of the future. Because your success is our business, and opening doors is what we do. We are Standard Chartered, here for good.
A bond that's steeped in history. A partnership that's strengthened through strategic, economic, and cultural ties, and cemented further by the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, CEPA. India and the UAE. At Emirates NBD, we're committed to and capitally invested in India, the largest trading partner of the UAE. One of the largest banking groups in MENAT, we offer a unique advantage to Indian companies across the Emirates NBD network. As the bank of choice, we already enjoy fruitful relationships with several Indian majors in diverse sectors. Now, we're expanding our presence to enhance the geographical coverage in India, while also facilitating large volumes of trade and capital flows between India and MENAT region. For us, it's more than the opening of branches. It's the opening up of our vision for India. It's a future that's poised to create history, celebrating 2 new branches in India, celebrating one great bond. Emirates NBD.
Why are more and more businesses choosing Abu Dhabi Global Market as their home? Is it the high business standards the city offers? Or because it's the true financial powerhouse of the UAE? Offering stability, Scoring first and mastering the art of finance for generations, ADGM sits in the heart of the Abu Dhabi economic vision, investing in sandbox environments and a modern infrastructure for digital banking. Step through the gateway into the future. Enjoy a business-friendly culture within a globally connected strategic location. Get on board a fast-moving economy, powered by the leading financial center in the UAE's capital. Abu Dhabi Global Market, your business capital.
Imagine a world where modern comfort meets timeless elegance, and where daily rituals elevate your here and now, transforming the mundane into exotic. Discovery and serenity. Every sense awakened, stimulated, and recharged. Every detail crafted with your comfort in mind. Brief moments, lasting memories. Welcome to the exotic side of life.
What can a bank bring to the world? How can it enable economies and companies to achieve their goals and help people realize their dreams? At Emirates NBD, our origins are in this sand and this sea. Just decades ago, these calm waters were echoing with the voices of pearl divers. Today, from the same land, rise modern marvels. And happy communities have been thriving on this land. Emirates NBD is a financial services company, a regional player contributing to a global ecosystem, because ambition knows no borders. We exist for people, supporting human endeavor. We enable economies as an integral fabric of communities and businesses. We innovate as a means to make lives easier, simpler, more enriching. We invest in the societies we're in to ensure that we share our growth. And we're driven by customer needs and challenges across sectors, looking beyond delivering what's next. For us, scale matters. It helps us to deliver synergies and functional expertise to our stakeholders. Technology matters. It places us at the cutting edge of transformation. Strategy matters. It positions us for leadership today and into tomorrow. Ultimately, we're all about people. Our own, our customers, our communities. We believe in creating opportunities for prosperity. We are Emirates NBD.
We are the only platform in the world that allows a non-technical customer to get software built for them without ever having to write a line of code.
All you need is a great idea, a challenge that you want to solve for your business, and we'll build the software for you.
It's easy, fast, has a fixed price. We're making people's dreams come true.
From an entrepreneur with a genius idea in their head to an enterprise CEO looking to transform.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're all suitably refreshed and you've absorbed all the information that you heard earlier. I hope so. We need to do everything in bite size so it can be fully absorbed, because a lot of people actually leave a lot of these conferences not remembering much. So I'm hoping that you're retaining the information that we give you here today. Well, so far, as we mentioned, we've heard from prominent women in global leadership positions, and also from the C-suite level as well, about some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that they've had throughout their careers, and some essential advice there for other women going forward. Now, we move on to, however, the entrepreneur. We need to hear the entrepreneur's voice. As men and women business owners, they face very, very different types of constraints and biases. This is business owners, SMEs, and entrepreneurs. Now, they face these biases just because they're women, and they're deemed more high risk. Can you believe it? Women apparently are more high risk than men when it comes to funding SMEs and different entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs. Well, to talk a little bit more about this, and I've got three incredible entrepreneurs here, female entrepreneurs, who are joining me here on stage to talk about the successes and some of maybe their failures as well, I'm not sure. But let's get them up on stage. A very warm welcome to Anuka Dada. She is the co-founder and CEO of Zeroism, and she's also the former advisor to the Prime Minister of the UK. She's here with us today. A very warm welcome. Come on up. Lovely to have you here, Anuka. Now, I do know that we don't have much time with you, so we're going to get to it straight away. A very warm welcome as well to Darshita Gillies. She's the founder and CEO of Manch. A very warm welcome. Lovely to have you here. Now, we are, in fact, waiting on another guest, and I'm hoping she's going to join us in due course. That's Zara Hash. She's the co-founder and CEO of Dana Venture Builder. She's also named in the Forbes list under 30 under 30, and I'm hoping she's going to join us in just a little moment. Right, in the meantime, Anuka, I know we don't have much time with you. You've got to dash off, sadly. I think you're back to the UK soon, aren't you? Right, let's start off with the question, why are women entrepreneurs deemed and seen as more high risk than men? It just seems totally ridiculous.
I mean, we're biased, aren't we? But we shouldn't be. Look, I think there's probably two kind of systemic things which I've found in my experience so far. And just to kind of caveat, I didn't ever think I'd be an entrepreneur. I spent nearly 15 years in the UK government and was just like, oh, nice, safe, steady income, that's lovely. But, you know, actually in breaking out, I've really enjoyed the ability to shape and set my own agenda and really hold those values kind of that I hold dear. But I think kind of the two issues that we tend to see is one that's socioeconomic, right, which is actually caring responsibilities, etc. That tends to be viewed as a bit of a risk because actually can you work all hours if you also have to go and collect your kids from school, etc. And then the second that I personally have found quite difficult is the language, so kind of more of the cultural and language bit, which is I was told I was incredibly brave for starting up my own business. And it's just bothered me because that makes it sound like it's an unusual thing to do or a not very wise thing to do. And you know, my life partner is actually also an entrepreneur, but as a man, no one says, oh, he's very brave. They just say, oh, good on you. So I think there's kind of a mix of things there, which is more engendered in the way we talk about this, but also kind of in the way we structure our society.
Completely. Why do you think women are deemed more high risk, Dashta? What is the misconception around that, do you think?
Yeah, I think I come from a very different perspective. I was born and raised in Mumbai, and in a very conservative family. I was fortunate to have parents who invested in my education, but the secondary sort of messaging always was, it's a backup plan. You're going to be a homemaker. And I think a lot of us are just subtly conditioned that we are homemakers and taking care of the home is our primary responsibility. And I think that stops a lot of women from taking up opportunities and risks that actually I think the world needs now. When I talk about the business I set up, Munch means platform in Hindi. I always start to say that I'm not starting a business of selling potatoes on a street. When we sell potatoes, we know they are like a common product. You create a demand. I think women think differently about the world. When I grew up in Mumbai, I was in a very humble home. I thought, this is my family. How do I empower us as a family and get us out from the poverty and the helplessness that we find ourselves in? As I've grown, I think the world is my home. And as a home, we have so many challenges. We need to build so many solutions. And I think women have it in them to actually want to build solutions that make things work for all of us. And I think that's what business is in the end about. It's about adding value, creating value for society. And I think when we think about going to a salon, the end destination, then I think my common companion would be a woman. I'd ask, Anuka, hey, you want to join me? I think when it comes to investing in women and starting a business, I think when investors are thinking about investing or backing, I think their common thinking is, they don't perceive women as someone, hey, I'll give you some money, let's go and build this business together. So I think there are like lots of layers that need to be looked at and examined, and it's as much as women stepping up and equally and importantly so investors backing women more proactively.
Anuka, I know you've got to rush off, so last question really for you. How do we break down these stereotypes when it comes to women's abilities around entrepreneurship? And also, where does change need to start? And how do we also sort of change the mindset when it comes to these investors?
So interestingly, in my kind of, if you were asking me for policy advice, as it were, I'm always very like, this technology will change everything, it's fine, we'll just innovate. But actually, in this particular kind of instance, I think it's very much like we all have it within ourselves to change this. So there's a lot that's said about role modelling. So I heard the kind of earlier speaker talking about the kind of bit in the middle that's missing. And quite often, if you don't see someone that looks like yourself, then you're kind of deterred from really going for it. And just you mentioned that my previous job, so my previous life before I took this plunge, was to be the advisor to Boris Johnson and Theresa May. And I actually nearly didn't go for that job because I was very worried that I wouldn't get it, but also I didn't look like anyone there, and just all those things. So actually it's a kind of like a smaller risk because I knew I was getting paid, whereas taking your own journey in a startup means totally the opposite. But it is that thing where I was like, oh, there will be all these men that will apply. And I think, how did I overcome that? Well, it was just by saying, well, you don't get anywhere if you don't go for it, you don't know. So I think it's kind of overcoming that uncomfortableness. And then the final point I'd just make is actually networks are the thing that also really helps you get over the line. So actually I think, and this is why IGF is great, within this we've built a real network over, be it today or the last few days, and those kind of series of champions are the people that can give you support, give you contacts, just even give you a pep talk sometimes when you're like, I just don't know. So I think kind of, creating the kind of female cartel to try and take over would be the kind of solution for me.
And what about changing mindsets when it comes to investors as well? How do we shift that mindset?
Quite often it's in the evidence, right? So actually, hopefully when we get joined by the mystery chair, actually there's some really interesting work that's going on that also shows that companies where women start them up, so yes, you're less likely to kind of A, start up a company, B, get investment for said company, but actually once you do create them, they tend to be incredibly successful because, to go to Darshini's point, actually we think about things in a slightly different reason. So maybe to come full circle and say, well, why don't we tend to go for this, or why are women viewed as riskier? Maybe it's because they know we're going to take over.
Yeah, there you go. Very well said. I'm going to leave you to it then. I think you've got to rush off, but we cannot thank you enough for coming in and being with us here today and putting your voice here today. It's been brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. In the meantime, I'm going to get close so we can have a proper chat, a nice fireside chat with you. But yes, let's continue on, obviously, with our conversation. What are your thoughts in terms of breaking those stereotypes and also changing investor mindset? What sort of roadblocks have you had along the way?
I like the earlier suggestion. I think it was about procuring talent, but the blind auditioning. We've seen that in orchestra. I think we are starting to see this in the UK, where when HR is looking at jobs, they screen out the names, and so there's less gender bias. I think it would be an interesting experiment to see pitch decks without the founders, because in the end it's the business idea and the team. If we take the team out, assume that all teams that are presented have capability to deliver the business idea. Let's do an experiment to see how many women get back. I have, sort of, obviously, I started the company as a bold mission to lay down the data infrastructure. Every money that we give, we spend, we invest, has impact on people and planet. We are not capturing that data. We've started to make ESG a big machinery, but we don't actually see the value of, sort of having that data can inform us to make impact inclusive decisions and lead to a very different future. To set a bold ambition and then to start a business quite young and then meet with COVID has been an interesting challenge, I must say. It's very hard, firstly, to fundraise, but secondly, to fundraise, build trust on a Zoom call with someone you've never met, and then as a woman, and then as a tech founder. It's all the no's. Generally, also, I think we've seen from evidence that businesses that have co-founders get more money than if you're a solo founder. And then you add a female solo founder, it becomes equally challenging.
It's interesting, very interesting. And as you said, to have a co-founder is going to win you that money if you pitch, right? Tell us a little bit more about mentorship. As an entrepreneur, do you have a mentor? Do any sort of men and women out there influence you at all?
100%. I say my daughter is my inspiration, and so is my husband. I think I would not be here had he not invested in me as a woman. And And it takes a lot of courage to actually consciously step back and allow the woman to lead in a relationship, but also in business. Our daughter, she's 13, and I remember during COVID, she said, and I was frustrated and I was crying because it was like, why is it so hard? And she said, Mom, why is it so hard to destroy the world? Why is it so easy to raise money to destroy the world, and why is it so hard to save it? And for me, this has become a personal mission. I want to show to young women that you can make money by actually adding value to society, to build businesses that are pro-people and pro-planet, and not built on exploitation of labor and or business models that extract from the earth without giving back. Time will tell, but for me, that's the spirit that wakes me up each day and makes me go for it each day.
And that seems to be the way of the world at the moment, especially after the pandemic. People really have changed their mindsets and the directions that they want to go in now as well, which brings me back to investing as well. What are investors looking for at the moment, especially within maybe women investors? Is there anything that they're looking at in particular, do you think?
I think definitely when it comes to sustainability, ESG, we are seeing a lot more women entrepreneurs stepping up to the game. But equally, our work is working with investors. We see that most investors are not going to divest from their existing portfolios. So the best way in which they can have an impact, investors can have an impact, is by actually engaging with their portfolio companies and encouraging them to have more diverse talent, encouraging them to look at more robust business models. But it's definitely not an easy task. Regulation and policies definitely help. I think the mystery chairperson is missing here, but one of the things we heard from her this morning from Zada, is when they invest, and if the founding team doesn't have female representation, they actually don't fund the business. And they say, bring a female founder, and then we'll have a look at your business. So having policies that counteract these sort of big gaps that exist in making the jump to play at par with other businesses is equally important.
Have you been quite lucky in terms of setting up your business? Has it been quite an easy process as a woman? And what sort of challenges have you had along the way?
I think I personally, I think we're speaking about being a woman, but I've never seen myself as a woman. I've always looked, okay, I need to start a business. How do we set that up? UK has a very good system in place to help set up businesses. Although, there is a lot that can be done to improvise and speed up our journeys as well. I think I was really impressed by the ecosystem here. One of the primary reasons I'm here is how do we grow and how do we expand? We've learned so much from the global north in terms of how investing is done. How do I bring that intel and insight and catalyze the opportunities in this region? And it's fantastic to see the opportunities that are being created here, including for female founders. And actually, one last word for India Global Forum. Manoj mentioned this morning, he had the list of 100 women in UK-India relations. I was one of them. And we also won the Startup of the Year award in 2019. And I think it's very important to highlight so much of growth depends on being acknowledged, being given a seat at the table, given a seat at the stage, because that's when not just the work that I do, but also how I think can become a shared, sort of adds to the collective narrative of how we need to shift things.
Now, as we've got a bit of extra time, I thought I'd throw out to our audience. Let's make this a little bit interactive, shall we? Does anyone have a question for our guest here while we have a little bit of time? Anything on entrepreneurship? Yes, we have a lovely lady at the back there, in the middle, sorry. If we have a microphone handy, do we?
If I'm audible enough, I can...
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe you can just shout. There we go.
I'm Priya. I'm from Startup Catalyst. I help founders raise funds.
We have a microphone for you. There you go.
I funded a few of the startups. So my question to you is, what has been more challenging, raising funds or building a business, being a woman entrepreneur?
Good question.
all of it. I think the challenge is, if there was funding available, I'd be able to spend more time on the business. And to be able to spend more time on the business, I need to raise money. So it's almost like a little sort of a vicious circle, which hopefully becomes a virtuous circle very soon. I think there are tips for sort of knowing who you want as your investor is so crucial. I feel like if I knew that, I would have spent so much less time trying to cajole investors who I knew would never invest in the first place. So knowing where you are as a business and who is the right growth partner, and only spending time in finding and meeting and building relationships, I think being strategic is very important.
Good question, thank you. We have one of our former panelists from earlier. Please do throw the microphone over and ask away.
Yeah, thank you. I have an interesting question. You said you were inspired by your daughter, and I think you related to you have to start young. What would your advice be to someone like me? I mean, I would not be telling my age on this stage, but so my daughter inspires me now. He said, you have done enough for the corporate and I have an idea for you. Please become an entrepreneur. Can I do it?
I would say 100%. I would say don't be deceived by how I look. Sometimes me and my daughter go and people say, ask her which year are you going to school, and then they turn to me and I say I'm her mom. So I would say I did start late. I could have definitely started earlier. But I think in the end, age is not a restriction to being an entrepreneur. It's a different lifestyle. On the one hand, yes, you're your own boss. On the second hand, you're responsible for everything, and it's not everyone's cup of tea. It's not. I didn't even think it was my cup of tea. My first year was, I'm going to try this out, but the intensity of it can sometimes be quite gripping. For anyone who's aspiring to be an entrepreneur from a corporate background, I would say one thing is, what is your personal relationship with fear and uncertainty? And if you feel that it is an inspiring space to be, and it actually compels you to go beyond that, entrepreneurship is absolutely the right thing. Because being an entrepreneur, you will be challenged to the absolute fear that you have, to the absolute sort of being able to drive uncertainty in the face of so many variables is something that, sort of, if you get used to it, it's no time is a good time.
That's great advice and brilliant question. Thank you. Yeah, because being an entrepreneur, it's a 24-hour job. My husband's an entrepreneur, and it's just continuous conversations, meetings, phone calls, because you're on call 24 hours a day, aren't you? Because it's your baby and you want it to grow and be successful. Any more questions from our audience at all? Any further questions? Oh, yes, we have a lady just here.
Actually, as you said, we are
We have a microphone here for you.
To give a little background, we are 4 sisters. I'm the youngest. So we're all proud of our parents. They give us a platform to where we are now. I've got 2 daughters of my own. So for me, the question for you is, as an entrepreneur, when you started, what was your thinking? Because I'm keeping my first step as an entrepreneur in the field of art. So how does that connect where you are right now? Can you just help me out to further put my step further out and become the one you are sitting there? Because next time when I see, I want to be there, not here.
Thank you. My first experience speaking on the stage was in front of 1,800 students, and I was such a shy person. My legs were shaking, and I don't know why I even put myself in the situation. And I think a lot of times it's just making a personal promise to yourself that that's what I want, and then having the ecosystem or the family system or the colleagues to help you and hold you accountable to move in that direction. And that is so important. Many times I think, oh, I don't want to do that, but then I think the part of me that then nudges me to end up doing it is, I think, how will my daughter look at me? How will this inspire not just my daughter, but so many daughters, so many young women? I come from a scheduled caste family in India, and I think, jumping caste, jumping layers of society, I never even dreamt I could buy a ticket from Mumbai to Lucknow. To imagine that I would one day live in London was like a fairy tale. So I think sometimes there are like little things we have to do just to push ourselves to that next, and I personally do believe if our intention is pure and we hold ourselves to keep on that path, we will find our way through.
I can take one last question. Yes, gentleman in the back.
Thank you very much. This isn't so much a question, just a statistic to give us a sense of just how real this is. Of the 100% of total capital invested in venture-backed startups in the USA in 2021, only 2% of those went to companies founded solely by women. 2 out of 100% in the USA.
Wow.
In the UK as well.
In the UK as well. Another shocking statistic there. And at the end of the day, the data and the statistics speak for themselves. We don't actually need to do any other sort of investigation into it. The figures speak for themselves at the end of the day. Tell us a little bit more about, actually, do we have any other further questions? I'm going to give our audience a little bit more of a voice. Yes, one last question, and then I think we'll wrap up after this.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for the session so far. It's been wonderful. My name is Shawnee, and the question that I have, or rather, I'm kind of stuck in an N+1 syndrome. And how do you leave your cushy corporate job and take that plunge? Because it's not sustainable. You don't know whether you're going to get the investments, and certainly can't be a side thing, right? It has to be your main focus. How did you take it, and what will be your advice for us people who are thinking of doing it, but it's like, yeah, let's do it next year, maybe on in again N+1 and so on.
Yeah. I'll tell you my story. I'm also from a corporate background. Started as a chartered accountant, worked with Standard Chartered. For me personally, the lever was, I'm one of those few people who said banking didn't take away my soul. I enjoyed every day I went to work. I loved the culture, I loved the work, I loved everything that was there. For me, it was more, I think like I mentioned, coming from a poor family, my goal at that time was how do I get rich fast, and banking was the way, and sort of pursuing and performing in that space. But then once I had sort of the house, the car, the maid, then the question was, but is this how we define success? And what is a bigger definition of success I can embrace for myself? And that then led me to a very different path than sort of being in the bank and still continuing to grow up the rungs. The last one is I was working as a consultant, working with governments, business, non-profits, and tri-sector partnerships. And I realized as a consultant I had limitations to how my work was having an impact. I made these amazing ideas. I drew out detailed roadmaps of how we can lead the world to sustainability. And I felt my ideas weren't getting through beyond just that pitch deck and the presentation. And so I think what I'm trying to say is the inherent sort of drive to see a certain outcome in the world is something that, if you can find that self in you, that's when you know entrepreneurship is the right way and the medium, because that's what's going to keep you up through the night. And then final one, I would say in one sentence is, for me, life has never been about living from the circumstance I've been. Life has always been about what is my vision, and then how do I make it happen? How do I gather the support and resources I need to help achieve that? And it's marvelous on the days where you feel there's nothing, suddenly mirrors of hope and resources just come into the bank account, into the team, and it all works out in the end.
Very well said. Thank you so much. Now, sadly, we have run out of time, but it's been fascinating hearing your story. Thank you so much for such incredible advice here today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, everyone.
Brilliantly done. Some fantastic conversations we've had here today so far. And we move on now to our final conversation, however. And who better to talk about female leadership, but from a man's perspective. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's time now to hear about the role of men and the part that they play to influence, mentor, and create change. It's a great pleasure to welcome our next guest. Please give a very warm welcome to Anthony O'Sullivan, Managing Partner of EY UAE. A very warm welcome. Lovely to have you here.
Likewise, great to be here.
The final conversation now.
I know, I stand between you and lunch.
Exactly, I know. It's always the toughest gig, this one. But we're going to make it good, because obviously we need a male voice on this, and it's so important to hear about how men think. And I'd quite like to start off with exactly what you're doing in your organisation. Let's start with that.
Sure.
In terms of how you're championing women within your organisation.
Sure, I think one of the earlier panelists made a very good point about the broken rung in the ladder, and that's very much what we see in our organisation. I mean, we're consultants, started off as a chartered accounting firm, and now we do more than that. And historically, that was very much seen as a male profession. The interesting thing to me, having been in the profession for 25 years, is that at the junior level now, it's very much a women-friendly profession, and very much a profession where there are more women now going into it than there are men. So if you look at our diversity stats, at the lower levels in our organization, you find that we have more than 50% female representation. The challenge that we have is that we're a pyramid of an organization, and people need to grow and work their way up through their career. And when you get 10, 15 years into the career, the stats become really alarmingly bad. And it's that broken rung we talk about. So as a man, when I started here, and I, 5, 6 years into my career, I get married, we have children. My career just continues as it was, and I progress. But for my female colleagues, when they get married and when they have children, that can be a significant break in a career progression. And partly that's the pressures that they get put upon themselves, and some of that is cultural. And increasingly, what I found was it was the problem of the organization themselves in not supporting women through that different periods in their life to be able to feel that they're supported to continue their career alongside that. So a lot of what we do at the moment is to try and support people through that process. I mean, we do have some examples of policies and procedures and all of that good stuff. But the biggest challenge, I think, is just the mindset change of leadership in our organization to be in a position to support. And you need role models for that. I mean, we had one colleague who I'm super, super proud of. She's a partner in our firm. She went through a very difficult pregnancy and birth earlier this year. And she was very public talking about that in the office. I mean, she was blogging about what she was going through. And now she returned back to work. And a lot of that was just to show that, she went through something, that she needed the support of an organization to help her through that, and we were there to support her by being alongside her in her journey. So I mean, a lot of what we're doing is just around to try and fix that broken rung, and it's mindset a lot of the time.
Speaking of women in leadership positions, a friend of mine's husband, his mother had a stroke. It was a really bad time in his life. Yeah. The woman CEO found out from one of his team members that she got sick, so she rang him personally. This is a huge global organization. Rang him personally. Are you okay? Go fly to the UK, wherever you need to be with her on the company. Don't worry. Yeah. And he was saying to my friend, he felt that his previous CEO, that was a man, probably wouldn't have done the same thing.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I personally in my career, my first ever boss was a woman. When I came to Dubai 25 years ago, for the 2-3 years after that, I was working directly with a female partner who was a mentor to me. And when I'm choosing a mentor, and I always recommend this to people, choose somebody who is different to you. And what I've learned is that, yes, there are differences between men and women in how we think, in how we act. There tends to be a greater ability to empathize. There tends to be a greater emotional intelligence for a female than a man. And I've seen that in our organization with female leaders who definitely have demonstrated that. And as a man, I think that's one of the things to be aware of. The importance of having that mix of skill sets and mix of emotional intelligence, because that's what makes your organization stronger as well.
And do you think empathy has become quite a highlight now because of the pandemic? Because I mean, you need empathy in organisations now going forward, right?
Yeah, I mean that was a horrible experience that all organisations went through, because I mean we all as large organisations, we value the culture that we have, and culture is people. And how can you create a culture if people aren't together and if they aren't connecting on a daily basis? And in the pandemic, where we had everybody connecting over Zoom, not physically being able to get together for a long time, that created pressures in culture. And I think there was an awareness that for women, those pressures were sometimes even greater than for men, because women working from home with kids, doing homeschooling, all of the other pressures that were coming on. I mean, as a man, I was able to go to my room and my wife was there and she was doing these things. That's shame on me, I should be doing more. But for a woman, particularly culturally here, they had to take a much more of the burden during the pandemic, and that did create a lot of challenges for our teams, and just making people aware that if you're working on a project, you've got women on your team with you. They may be under different pressures than you are. Everybody's being challenged, but everybody's being challenged differently, and that awareness needs to be there.
That's amazing that you actually drew awareness to that. That leads me on to my next question. Sadly, we are running out of time, but what sort of responsibility should men take on then when it comes to mentoring, influencing, and championing women in different roles? What sort of responsibility do we need to, and how do we get people to do that as well?
So there's a few things that we need to do, and I mean, a lot of that is a personal commitment that you need to make yourself. So for example, and again, broad generalizations, I think a lot of people here would agree that women tend to be a little bit more reticent about coming forward and about celebrating their achievements. Men tend to be a lot more, less shy about saying what a great job they did, less shy about putting forward ideas and suggestions that they have for how we could do things differently. As a leader, one of your roles is to make sure that everybody in your team gets an equal opportunity to shine. So sometimes it can be just as simple as when you're in a meeting, making sure that somebody that's in the corner that hasn't said very much yet gets the opportunity to speak up. And as an organization, when you see that we've been successful in something and it's a female leader that's been part of the team or has been leading a team that makes us successful, championing that person and championing what they did, so that you're creating the role models in the office, you're creating the opportunities for people to feel recognized. And as I said, for men, we tend to put our hand up a lot more to be recognized than women, and you need to be able to manage that, to give people the opportunities.
It's amazing to hear what you're doing, your corporation. But do you think, my final question, do you think gender equality will ever be achieved, and how are we going to get there?
Well, one thing that I noticed, and it was said earlier today about the kids of today. I mean, when I see my 14-year-old son and 16-year-old daughter and their friends and how they think about issues of diversity in the world, they have a completely different mindset to when I was a kid, and that gives me a lot of hope for the future. In that, culturally, changing a culture takes time, and changing an organization's culture takes time. But if you have people coming in at the bottom, the youth who are of a different mindset and already have that in their DNA, the concept of equality, the concept of doing the right thing, the concept of doing what's best for society, then you can make a real change over time, and that's when the culture will change. So I have a lot of hope, because organizations are doing things, policies, procedures, that's all great, but nothing will really change until there's a mindset change and a cultural change. And I'm very positive about what I see with the youth of today and how they think about these things, that things will change.
I completely agree. I have a 9-year-old now and a 4-year-old, and they do see the world very differently as well, which is a good thing as well, isn't it? Fantastic to speak with you. Sorry, it's been very short and sweet, but brilliant to have you here on the stage and to hear a male voice on this very important topic. Thank you so much. Let's hear it.
Thank you.
For Anthony. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lovely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is it here at the India Global Forum, Women in Leadership Forum. Thank you so much to each and every one of you for all coming out to listen to all of our esteemed speakers today, speaking so brilliantly on women in leadership. We've heard some shocking figures throughout the day, haven't we? We really have. And at the end of the day, it really is the figures that speak for themselves. I'm hoping that those figures are going to change as time goes on. Speaking of figures, I'm going to leave you all with the figure that I opened with, just to remind you that closing the gender gap in the workforce could add $28 trillion to the global GDP. There you go. I'm hoping we're able to change that. How wonderful to be your host this year, and we very much look forward to welcoming you back next year. Thank you so much. Thank you.
What can a bank bring to the world? How can it enable economies and companies to achieve their goals and help people realize their dreams? At Emirates NBD, our origins are in this sand and this sea. Just decades ago, these calm waters were echoing with the voices of pearl divers. Today, from the same land, rise modern marvels. And happy communities have been thriving on this land. Emirates NBD is a financial services company, a regional player contributing to a global ecosystem because ambition knows no borders. We exist for people, supporting human endeavor. We enable economies as an integral fabric of communities and businesses. We innovate as a means to make lives easier, simpler, more enriching. We invest in the societies we're in to ensure that we share our growth. And we're driven by customer needs and challenges across sectors, looking beyond delivering what's next. For us, scale matters. It helps us to deliver synergies and functional expertise to our stakeholders. Technology matters. It places us at the cutting edge of transformation. Strategy matters. It positions us for leadership today and into tomorrow. Ultimately, we're all about people. Our own, our customers, our communities. We believe in creating opportunities for prosperity. We are Emirates NBD.
We are the only platform in the world that allows a non-technical customer to get software built for them without ever having to write a line of code.
All you need is a great idea, a challenge that you want to solve for your business, and we'll build the software for you.
It's easy, fast, has a fixed price. We're making people's dreams come true.
From an entrepreneur with a genius idea in their head to an enterprise CEO looking to transform their organization to the next level.
Builder will be the platform that they will build upon.
When it comes to venturing into unfamiliar territories, at Standard Chartered, we understand the journey you're making. Our network of experts are on the ground already, promoting dialogue, driving innovation, and building the sustainable economies of the future. Because your success is our business, and opening doors is what we do. We are Standard Chartered, here for good.
A bond that's steeped in history. A partnership that's strengthened through strategic, economic, and cultural ties, and cemented further by the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, CEPA. India and the UAE. At Emirates NBD, we're committed to and capitally invested in India, the largest trading partner of the UAE. One of the largest banking groups in MENAT, we offer a unique advantage to Indian companies across the Emirates NBD network. As the bank of choice, we already enjoy fruitful relationships with several Indian majors in diverse sectors. Now, we're expanding our presence to enhance the geographical coverage in India, while also facilitating large volumes of trade and capital flows between India and MENAT region. For us, it's more than the opening of branches. It's the opening up of our vision for India. It's a future that's poised to create history, celebrating 2 new branches in India, celebrating one great bond. Emirates NBD.
Why are more and more businesses choosing Abu Dhabi Global Market as their home? Is it the high business standards the city offers? Or because it's the true financial powerhouse of the UAE? Offering stability, scoring first, and mastering the art of finance for generations, ADGM sits in the heart of the Abu Dhabi economic vision, investing in sandbox environments and a modern infrastructure for digital banking. Step through the gateway into the future. Enjoy a business-friendly culture within a globally connected strategic location. Get on board a fast-moving economy, powered by the leading financial center in the UAE's capital. Abu Dhabi Global Market, your business capital.
Imagine a world where modern comfort meets timeless elegance, and where daily rituals elevate your here and now, transforming the mundane into exotic. Discovery and serenity. Every sense awakened, stimulated, and recharged. exotic side of life.